Okay, so a warm welcome to all of you. It's nice to see you. I'm Mats. I'm the Director of Education at Eurocree presently. And this is actually the first webinar in our new series, which will be run over the autumn and the winter and the spring. And then we will evaluate and see what how the results have been. And I must admit that we're having a great start today. So I'm looking forward very much to this very specific webinar, where the idea is basically to focus on relevant topics, interesting topics, but also topics that could make us feel good and hopefully even a little bit more knowledgeable. Saying that, I'm also inviting you, anyone who's interested in holding a webinar or presenting at the webinar, to let me know, and then I can see if I can fit you into the schedule. A schedule that will be presented later on after the conference in Aalborg in 3 weeks' time then, Anders, right?
3 weeks' time, yeah.
Exactly. And as we're talking about Aalborg, why not let our Danish PR guru, Anders, coming in and give us some hot topics and the news from the coming conference. Please, well, Anders.
Thank you very much, Mats, and thank you very much to sort of act as the warming up session here for a great online session on virtual learning. I'll do it short so you can get to the main act as quick as possible. But yeah, as Matt said, we are getting ready for the main event this year, Eurocree 2021 in Aalborg, and we're going to commence that from September 27th to the 30th, as many of you know by now. I think I'll start just by very short addressing the elephant in the room, which is COVID-19. So I'm actually very, very happy to see that we are seeing cases, new positive cases of COVID-19 going down every single day here in Denmark. Today, it was only around 400 people of new cases that we had. And we are very happy actually to see that by September 10th, the Danish government are going to lift all existing COVID-19 regulations and restrictions. So September 10th, we are back to what we'll call normal conditions, or without any sort of restrictions whatsoever, because of a very, very, very low number of positive corona cases. I'll let you know that already now 84% of the Danish population down to age 12 are fully vaccinated, which also means that if you are fully vaccinated with a approved vaccine, you can travel into Denmark without any quarantine or any requirements of testing and whatsoever. Of course, we still know that COVID-19 is still around, so we still make sure to keep our social distance, to sanitize our hands and things like that. However, it is possible to meet as we have done before 2020. So that's a very, very happy message that I can give you. This also means that we have seen a boost in the number of registrations. And right now we are around 130 on-site delegates as we speak. So if you want to join the funny crowd of 130 people that you might not have seen for 2 years now, then I can tell you that registration closes by September 20th. So you still have a bit of time before we close everything down, but we need to do that in order to make our preparation. For those of you who already have papers in, you will have a full program at the same date, so September 20th. Right now, as I mentioned, we see a lot of late registration, so it's very, very difficult and challenging to actually plan a presentation program, but we'll have that ready for September 20th. Enough about that. We have a couple of workshops that we would like to offer you, and during our week here in Denmark, we have a food experience symposium about the future taste and taste development of food, which is hosted by our director of research, Danny Hahn, from Maastricht, together with Institut Paul Bocuse and Hagahelia and Breda as well. On top of that, of course, we have a simulation workshop with Russell Partnership Technology. We also offer you an experience design workshop as well with a couple of local consultants from Aalborg, which is literally focusing on what they call experience-scapes and how you design perfect and full-ended experiences. And for the learning and educational minded of you, we are going to offer you what we call a reflective practice learning workshop as well, which is an introduction to what we're doing, our learning philosophy here in Aalborg at UCN, which we call RPL, and how we work with that, and some insights and discussions on how to develop a reflective practice learning base within hospitality and tourism education. A couple of panel sessions for you that I would like to highlight during the week as well is that we have a industry/academic panel discussion on your area destinational development. That is with our main speaker, Tom Hall from Lonely Planet in London, who's traveling over and will initiate that as a key note on that, together with 3 hoteliers and 1 destinational manager or director of our regional DMO here in Aalborg as well. Furthermore, we have a workshop in ethics and business modeling, where we have actually our focus on social business, and we have our regional industry award taker, Guesthouse Klitmøller, which shouldn't be difficult to say for Dane, but it might be more tricky for the rest of you. But where we're going to discuss social business and social business development in relation to destinational image and CSR perspective towards hospitality operations. Included in that, we also have a well-known company to Eurocree back from 2015, which is Scandic Business School, who's coming in as well. And we have one of our hospitality organizations, employer organizations, very similar to the Institute of Hospitality, but Danish cafes and restaurants, coming in and discussing corporate social responsibility and ethic aspects towards business modeling. Last but not least, I also offer you a focus on the Arctic. Well, we are in Denmark, and as you know, a large part of Denmark also includes the Faroe Islands and Greenland. So we have Tracy Michaud, who's going to work with her, or coming in with her group, to do a session on curriculum development in the Arctic areas, with a focus on Greenland and the new investments that we see in Greenlandic tourism. So we want to sort of highlight the opportunities as well for both American and European institutions to join the work that they're doing in order to develop hospitality and tourism education in these areas, or the Arctic region as well. Not all of it is purely professional. We also like to have our social arrangements, of course, and if you follow our social media accounts, we're going to offer you a trip to the zoo, among other things, after our Northern Danish safari, which is a networking trip in some of these areas that we're going to highlight during the week. We're going to tuck in the animals up in our city zoo here in Aalborg with a drink and a little bite to eat as well. Wednesday night, we have our wonderful Nordic night with a focus on local producers and a focus on the North Sea as well, and the treasures that is hidden there. And last but not least, which is, we're not going to have a gala dinner as we know it, so you don't have to pack your black tie for this event, but we're going to have a harvest feast instead at a Renaissance castle just up north in Aalborg, which is going to include all the wonders that you've seen in the video, with all the greens that we've been looking at. We will always have a vegan and a vegetarian offer throughout our social events, and of course with some of the happy pics that you have seen in the videos as well. So it's going to be sort of proper celebration of the autumn that we're going to do, and of course that's going to end our wonderful week together. So remember, deadline for registration, we close registration September 20th. be there, register before that, and meet people that you haven't seen for 2 years. It's going to be a fantastic reunited Eurocree that we're going to see. So join. That was my setup. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anders. It sounds really exciting, and I look forward very much to see you in a lovely Denmark. Should be perfect, I think.
Perfect.
So thank you very much for that. And then let's bring us over to the main topic for today, and it's with a great pleasure I have the privilege to present Professor Niki Davis, who today will enlighten us on the topic of level up your online course design, strategies for keeping students engaged. And Niki is the program director and professor of practice for the hospitality, tourism and event management program at Southern Illinois University in America. And the fact is that Niki has successfully been teaching online since 2004, which I think is quite an achievement. And the list of awards and accomplishments is far too long to present in a single webinar. So we leave that.
Please don't. We'll leave that for later.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you so much.
But also, I'm just going to say one more thing, because I find it equally interesting that you actually write about food as well, because I'm very interested in food and I'm very interested in writing. So the combination is really exciting, I think, for me as well.
That's what I do in my 5 minutes of free time each day.
Exactly, and that's good. So before I'm handing the stage over to you, I'm just going to say that we have some time for discussion afterwards. But if you have some questions during the presentation, you're more than welcome to put them in the chat, and we will make sure that Niki can answer them straight away. Otherwise, we leave some time to afterwards as well. So please, Niki, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for anyone. I am right in the middle of my morning coffee this morning, so give me just a moment to share my screen. And I'm going to go ahead and pull chat up just so I can see it and hopefully catch things too as they come in. All right. All right, so you should be able to see my first slide, level up your online course design strategies for keeping students engaged, correct?
Yep.
Excellent. All right, everything's working on my end. That's always the #1 fear on virtual events, is things don't work. So I am going to move through some of these slides a little bit quicker, just so we have plenty of time at the end of my presentation this morning to answer questions and have a good, healthy conversation about some of the things that I'm presenting this morning. I'll put this slide up again at the very end. But again, this is contact information for me. LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm not on Twitter much anymore. I've kind of transitioned to Instagram, but that's the foodie side of me talking. But you're certainly welcome to email me, or the QR code there is for WhatsApp, and you're welcome to connect with me there as well. So leveling up, it occurred to me that this is a very American video game related term and something that not everybody outside of the States might be familiar with. Really what this means is taking your skill set to the next level. And in the video game language, it means moving up to the next level of the video game. And it's a term that has kind of leached out into other parts of our culture, and one that I use in my teaching and in my course design quite a bit. So if you're a beginner, it means just kind of moving up to that next step and building on your skill set. If you are kind of in that intermediate stage and you've been teaching online or hybrid for a little bit, continuing to build your skill set and learning new things. If you're like me and have been doing this for what seems like forever, back in the early stages of online curriculum development, it really just means keeping up with what's going on and keeping up with technology that is constantly changing, and it changes faster the older I get. So again, that's kind of what the term means, and really what we'll be talking about today. So in short, we'll be chatting about being present in your classroom, and this goes across all learning modes, whether you're teaching in class, online, hybrid, on Zoom, however you're teaching. Thinking a little bit differently about your course design, and then using different types of media in your courses or in your presentations to keep your students engaged. So being present really just means letting your students know who the person is behind the screen. And especially if you're teaching anywhere outside of the regular traditional classroom. This is something that I learned many years ago. Students want to know who you are, what you look like, what you do in your free time. All of those things that we can share in the traditional classroom space, those are still relevant in the online and virtual space as well. So some of the things that I do in order to kind of be present and have my face in front of students in online and virtual classes, I do a lot of video, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples of those videos this morning. And as I'm going through my presentation, I'm really hoping that you just kind of pick out the nuggets of things that interest you the most. There is a lot of information here, but I want to provide some sort of inspiration. And if you just take one thing away from this morning, I'm okay with that. But I do a lot of videos. I do a video introduction of myself for my virtual courses, and I'll show you an example of that. I do video introductions of all of my learning units. So that's typically one video a week. I try to do learning units one a week. So a lot of video production going on in my world. I set expectations in my syllabus. I set expectations for my students in those videos that I'm recording and in various other places in our learning management system. Real quick while I'm talking, drop in the chat what learning management systems everybody uses. We use Brightspace by D2L, but I'm kind of curious to see what you're all using. Communication, regular email. I send out an email 2 weeks before our term starts, and we are on semesters, so we have 3 terms a year. I send out an email a day or 2 before the class actually starts. And then I have weekly email communication, excuse me, with my students, introducing new modules, introducing new information, sometimes as a reminder to do things that they're not keeping up with. So a lot of communication going on. I also host online office hours for my students. So we are required to have 6 office hours in a week, and I do 2 of those fully online, and we use Microsoft Teams at SIU, but Zoom, anything like that would work as well. But I want to make sure that I have that time set aside specifically for my online students so they're comfortable communicating in that space. Prompt feedback kind of goes outside of the media scape a little bit, but I think it's incredibly important to provide feedback in a timely manner. And in my syllabus, I actually tell my students that within a week of a due date, I'll have things back to them. And typically I can stick to that schedule. But if something happens and I'm going to be too much longer than that week, I let them know so they don't freak out thinking their papers haven't been graded. But I also use audio and video feedback for our students. And that's something that's built into our learning management system as well. So a lot of Canvas, a lot of many things there, Anne, that you're using. I'm that way too. And a Moodle, good. So familiar with all of those. Hang on 1 second. There we go. All right, so a few examples. All of these are video examples. I'm not going to play the entire video. Some of them are quite lengthy. But just enough of the video for you to get a good idea of what I'm doing from that perspective. So the first is a course introduction. Fingers crossed that this works. Can you hear that okay? It's kind of... Hi everybody, welcome to HTEM 450 Event Marketing and Sponsorship. I'm Dr. Niki Davis and I will be your professor through the summer. The next 8 weeks, you'll get to know me pretty well and hopefully I'll get to know you as well. A little bit of background about me for those of you who've never had one of my classes before. My pre-teaching career was actually in marketing and event management. Stop there because you don't need to hear the rest of it. But this is, a 1.5-minute video that introduces me as their instructor, gives them some background as to what my professional background is all about. And I teach the marketing and event classes here at SIU. So my professional experience aligns with what I'm teaching. And for the student, that's a benefit because I can bring the good, bad, and the ugly about event planning and late registrations and all of those stories into the classroom as learning experiences. So that's one example. Here's a second. Hi everybody, welcome to our new module, Module 2. Before I get started on explaining what we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks, I wanted to introduce you to the Corker Lounge. Here on campus, we're in the Student Center, and further behind me are the Student Center ballrooms. So if you've been in this space, this all looks very familiar to you, but it is one of the event spaces that we have where we can do larger conferences and small conventions sometimes, as well as smaller meetings with the way that the ballrooms actually lay out. The reason I wanted to bring you here today. So this is an example of a module introductory video that I did, and this was a class I taught over the summer. So I actually had fully online students from our online program in the course, as well as students who are typically on campus, but not during the summer. So it's kind of a mix of students there. I tried a couple of new things here, and for the module videos, I bounced around campus a little bit and did videos in our event spaces to introduce those spaces to our event students that are interested in working on campus and doing their internships here. That gave them just a little bit more information than what was in the module and connected them a little bit more to the university, and certainly for those students who are not typically physically on campus with us each year. So something that at the end of the semester, I had a lot of students tell me they appreciated having that little bit of a peek into what we do on campus from a true event perspective that's outside of the classroom. So something to think about. This last video is very long, and I'll kind of start and skip through it a little bit. It's a screenshot video that I did. Hi everybody, I wanted to take just a few moments and give you a bit of a walkthrough of the D2L Fusion conference as it started this morning. Is kind of your standard. It's about 12 minutes long, so I don't want to play the whole thing clearly, but the video itself was a screen capture that I did, and it was to kind of walk my event students through what a virtual conference looks like or could potentially look like. And this is when D2L has done their conference virtual for 2 years now, and they've done a fabulous job. And of course, it's an LMS company. They've got all of the designers and the web geeks and all of those kind of folks to do these things. But it was a really well done event, and I wanted to present that to my students. So I just sat down and did a screen capture and clicked through the different parts of the screen and recorded that as I was talking about my experience attending the conference. Now, each of my learning modules in this particular class aligned with a specific event, a real event, and this particular module was all about virtual events and the media and things that go into that. So I tried to tie a real world event to what the students were learning, and then they used that real world event to do their assignments and whatnot in the course. So as much as possible, I do those things in my classes. A little bit outside of the conversation this morning, but I think worth the mention for sure. All right, so how I create my video content. Again, this is something that I have up-leveled, I have upskilled in the past couple of years. And really since the pandemic began, somewhat because we were kind of thrown into this virtual world, and I knew I needed to be doing something more for my students, but somewhat coincided with my food writing as well. And I'll talk about that at the tail end. I used to use storyboards when I did videos, and even my PowerPoint presentations, I used to storyboard when I first started teaching. If you're not familiar with what a storyboard is, it's kind of well, it's not old, it's still used frequently in the media world, but something that I learned when I was working in advertising and working with commercials and those kinds of things. And it's just a screen by screen idea board of what you want your video PowerPoint presentation to look like. The more you do these things, the less you need that. And I kind of create as I go now, but I do script all of my videos and all of my audio podcasts. primarily because in the US, we are required to provide a transcript of any video or audio recordings that we give to our students. So I script it first and I dictate to my computer so it sounds like I'm talking to you as opposed to typing an essay or something. And then I just kind of read that back as I'm recording. So I have the transcript already prepared. I use Wondershare Filmora, and it's relatively inexpensive. I use it for my personal stuff, so I just pay for it out of pocket. We do have some resources on campus, but it's hard to get in the schedule there. So a couple of things with video or audio, if you go down this path, your audio has to be very clear and very present and very loud enough. That's why I was asking if you could hear the videos as they were playing, because it was very faint for me to listen to. So a good microphone is important, and your webcam microphone and your computer microphone are not always the best quality. So if this is something that you really dig into, investing in a good quality microphone is probably a good idea. Use a good quality video camera if you're shooting video. And I will be honest with you, this is what I use, my iPhone, for most things anymore, because the newer the iPhone, the better the video is on them. And then check lighting. You don't want to have weird light things going on around you when you're on camera. I record, I edit, and I upload to YouTube, and then I embed that YouTube video into our learning management system. For us, that's just the best route to go. If you can upload your videos directly into your LMS, that's another option. That's a little clunky for us, so I just use YouTube and keep everything there. It's also easy to go back to it later if you need something for another course. And I use Canva. Shake your head if you're familiar with Canva. Nope, that might be a US thing too. Worth checking out if you do any kind of presentations, any kind of graphic things for your universities, even if you're just responsible for the Facebook page. It's an incredible, there's a free version and a paid version, but there's a lot of power behind it. And my presentation this morning, I built on Canva, and I'm actually presenting through Canva. So again, some other tips to the trade there. All right, last thing about being present. This is the gear I use to do my videos that I've shown you this morning. Certainly the ones that are out and about in different places besides, right here at my computer. Again, I have an iPhone 12 Pro. I opted to upgrade a few months ago just to get that better camera on the phone. When I travel, I have that particular tripod. It was $30 off Amazon. It's a great little tripod that weighs about 2 pounds and fits in my backpack, so I can move around with it easily. The Samsung Go Mic Mobile, a little bit more expensive there, but I use it constantly. And Santa Claus brought it to me a couple years ago. So there you go. It actually attaches the transmitter that you see there attaches to me with a microphone, and then that little receiver has like a belt clip that hooks to the back of my phone. So it's just a nice little easy setup for mobile videos. But again, things I can talk more about later. All right, on to point 2. Let's see, Ray, you're asking, ever do storytelling with students in terms of creating a theme for an event? Sometimes I do. I teach the intro level event course once a year. Right now we're teaching it once a year, and those are things that I would do in that particular class. We are launching an event management lab course kind of as a result of the pandemic, because I realized our students don't have the virtual event skills that they need. So we're actually launching a new course for that. And that's something that I'll probably put into that course as well from a theme perspective. Okay, so thinking just a little bit differently about course design. Again, if you've been doing this for as long as I have, thinking differently is still a good thing. And if you're just starting out, thinking about how you want to present your courses is where you start with this. Some questions to ask, put yourself in your student's shoes. How does your course look and feel from the student perspective? Is it easy to navigate? Can they find things they need? the understanding of the content where you want it to be as far as where things are located in the course, and all things to think about. Mostly what we want to avoid is some poor student so frustrated they look like this when they're on your course. From a virtual perspective, we don't want that, because it means they're less likely to be engaged, and we need to keep them engaged, certainly in that fully virtual modality. So things that I do, I design in chunks. I create learning modules that are based on the content of the course. Typically they're 1 week, sometimes they're 2 weeks. It really just kind of depends on the course I'm working on and what the learning material looks like. If you use a textbook in your classes, that's a really good place to start, because most of our textbooks are chunked into sections, and then the chapters within each of those sections relate to each other in some way. That's a good place to start with this, and certainly if you're new to course design. I'm to the point in probably, I don't know, maybe a third of my classes where I'm no longer using a textbook and I'm kind of doing things myself. So either way, I'm chunking that material to make it easier for the students to, to digest, really. Providing a roadmap, think outside of your syllabus, those two kind of tie together there. But make sure your students understand how you've designed the course, because we all, however many of us there are on this call this morning, we're all going to design a little bit differently. So make sure you provide enough of a roadmap to make it easy for your students to navigate your course. Align your course. Make sure your program outcomes are aligned with your course learning outcomes, and those are aligned with your assessments. That is kind of curriculum 101, but definitely worth the mention as you're thinking about redesigning or designing a course. The coffee shop space is something I started doing about 10 years ago in my fully online courses. And this is a space for students to create their own culture for each of the courses that I have. They can talk to each other, ask questions, clarify material if they need to. They can post here. It's a discussion forum. They can post here and tell me that a link isn't working in module 3. Anything goes. The only thing that I won't talk about in the coffee shop area are individual student grades and issues that the student might be having. I save all of that for private space, but the coffee shop just allows the class to have its own culture behind it. Syllabus and beyond, don't only use your syllabus to get your point across for the course. Have expectations in your syllabus and have them injected into the course in your LMS and other places. Put due dates on your syllabus, but put due dates in other places in your LMS. So use the tools within your learning management system to kind of reinforce what you have in your syllabus. And I'm kind of the school of thought, the more places you have things, the less likely a student is to miss information. Move backward is kind of my take on backward design. And that's something that I do in some of my classes, but certainly not all of my classes. So really the point here is in course design, become familiar with a handful of curriculum design models, and use what works for you and use something different in different classes if you need to. These are things as you teach, and I don't know how many years of experience everybody has, but the longer you teach, the more intuitive some of this becomes. And as new design models kind of come to the surface, and those are things that we can upskill and up-level as professors. All right, so a few examples with regard to course design. I'll show you a welcome announcement from a couple classes within our LMS, the content area, what it looks like, and we'll talk a little bit about mobile-friendly course design. So this is an introduction, a welcome message, a welcome introduction for a fully online course that I teach. I use the same blueprint in all of my online courses. There's an intro video, and this is the intro video that you saw earlier in the presentation. And then I just let them know what to expect, important things to remember. I'll link, you can see here, I'm pointing at the screen like you can see it. a link there to the coffee shop hyperlinked. So I give the students as much information as I can. I reinforce what's already in the syllabus. So again, there's information in 2 places. And then if you were to scroll down, you would see some how to get started information and how the course is laid out and designed information. But this is very, very detailed for my online courses. When I teach a hybrid course or even a face-to-face course, I'll supplement with our learning management system. The welcome message is quite a bit shorter because I'm in front of them in the classroom instead of having them only online. So still a welcome message, quite a bit shorter, no video. I can introduce myself standing in front of them in the classroom, but still enough information to kind of get them going in the class itself. All right. Canvas and Moodle I'm seeing on here. Chances are your content area looks pretty similar. I haven't been on Canvas or Moodle in many, many years. But what I've learned about LMSs is they largely function the same where look and feel, design is concerned. But again, examples of how I chunk my material. So the syllabus is there. I have a link to the coffee shop in a learning module, and then you can see modules 1, 2, and 3, and then on down it goes for the semester. But within module 2, then you can see there in that larger photo how things are kind of chunked into lessons. In this particular class, you have to complete that first lesson before the next one opens and before the third one opens and before the fourth one opens. So I'm essentially forcing them to take in those lessons and not skip through things. And then what you don't see here at the very bottom of this list is a quiz and assignment, and neither of those 2 things are available to students until they've finished all of these lessons. Now I'm kind of force feeding them a little bit, but for our students, if I don't do that, they're going to skip around and only read what they want to or watch what they want to. And sometimes that's none of it. So they try to go into assignments and quizzes without the foundation they need, and then they don't do well. So I've learned in the past handful of years that as my students are changing, I have to kind of change my course design with them a little bit. All right. And last but not least in this particular section, being mobile friendly. This one slapped me in the face over the summer and is part of why I'm starting to redesign and rethink my classes. With D2L, we have a mobile app that the students can use called Brightspace Pulse. And for Canvas and Moodle users, you might want to check into if there's a mobile app that supports either one. I don't know. But the look and feel of the class from a mobile perspective using D2L is incredibly different than from a desktop or laptop perspective. So all of those announcements that I've been talking about don't show up in this mobile app. And I didn't know that until I got on here and kind of toyed with it during the D2L conference in July. And I looked at that and I thought, if my students are doing this class on their phones or their iPads or tablets, they're missing a lot of information that I'm giving them. Excuse me. So I've been redesigning based upon that. That's also why you see the syllabus in its own learning module. You see the coffee shop. I used to put those in different places in D2L, and realizing that the students on the mobile app couldn't see them where they were listed in the desktop. So make sure that if there is a mobile support for your LMS, log in, look at it from the student perspective, and just make sure that things are working in that space like you want them to, in addition to your desktop space. So that's one that like completely threw me for a loop this summer. And I thought, oh gosh, I need to rework some things in my classes because I have students that are missing information because of this. So much fun. All right, so our last few minutes, we'll talk a little bit more about media and specific types of media that I use. I don't know, give me a yes if you've ever sat in a presentation or in a classroom where the professor or presenter has too much text on a PowerPoint slide and stands there and reads it. Yeah, I see a lot of heads nodding there. I think as students ourselves, we get into these situations and we probably know, we know faculty members in our own little circle that probably still do this. Students hate it. They just absolutely detest that form of teaching. And the comment I usually get is, I can get this out of the book. You know, I can read the book for this. I don't need, you know, this is not what I need in the classroom. So I shy away from lots of blocks of, you know, as I present a lot of blocks of text on my screen, but, you know, I kind of shy away from that. And if I do need to have a lot of text on screen, I try to design it in a way that is easy to digest. So types of media that I use, I am heavy on photos and heavy on videos, and that is in-person classes through fully online classes. I rely a lot on photo and video. But other things that I, you know, with animations on slides, and it doesn't have to be cartoon character animations. It can be what I'm doing today and having the slides just kind of wave in and out of the presentation to create a little bit more movement, which catches the attention of the present or the students a little bit. Yeah. Oh gosh, Ray. I haven't seen that one in a while, but you're right. You know, standing in front of the computer, in front of the screen and reading it, mercy. I think I'd have to leave that one. So photos and animation, those are relatively simple things to add to PowerPoint, Keynote, you know, whatever you're using, Google Slides. The 360-degree photos and videos, I just over the summer started to play with a little bit for my classes. They're not the easiest things to deal with because our university doesn't have systems in place to deliver that material. If I upload a 360-degree photo to our learning management system, it just looks weird. There's no 360 there. It's kind of the flat photo. So it's not the perfect scenario, but I've been able to do some things, you know, on our program's Facebook page with 360 video. So I'm kind of using it in that space right now, but hoping that things progress a little faster. I can use it in some classes. Polls I'm going to skip because I have one at the end to show you. Let's see. Suggest max length of video. I think that depends on the type of video. My intro videos that I use are a couple minutes at the most, because I think too much longer than that, you're going to lose a student. If I'm doing a little bit more of kind of that lecture scenario, I try to cap it at about 10 minutes. And that's, I don't know that there's a best practice there. I hear 3 minutes, I hear 20 minutes from people. But I think the longer the video, the less engaged your students are going to be by the end of it. I will, thank you. Let's see. Okay, polls, I'll show you that at the tail end. Music and video, we've talked about the video quite a bit already with some examples, but I've been known, you know, when I have an 8 a.m. class, we have faculty that brew coffee in the classroom, and we serve coffee in some of our classes, our food classes. I've been known to take my speaker in and turn up the music for 8 a.m. classes to get the students kind of awake and ready for the learning time. So these are things that make me the crazy professor, and I'm okay with that. Interactive video, I saw your link there, kind of fits with this particular conversation. I use PlayPosit for interactive video, and I have some screenshots of that a bit later to show you what it looks like. We don't have at SIU a way to do really solid interactive video, and this is not something that I'm willing to pay for out of my own pocket. So I kind of hit and miss here on whether I can do it or not. But when I do, my students really enjoy it. Audio podcasts, I do a lot of these in my classes, and I just record them using software called Audacity, which is free for PC computers. And if you're a Mac person, GarageBand works just as well to create these audio, you know, clips, these podcasts. And these are anywhere from, 3 to 5, maybe 7 minutes long. And it's just chunks of material I want my students to learn. But again, I provide a transcript for those. Live streaming, I'll say if I have an example of that here in a little bit too. All right, so podcasts will talk about screenshots of interactive video and live streaming. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Okay, audio podcasts. Again, I use free stuff to do all of this with, so it takes time as opposed to money and time. But this is the content module that I showed earlier. But this first, what looks like a video sitting there is actually an audio podcast. So if a student hits play, they're going to hear my voice, but they're not going to see movement. It's going to be that same screen for the whole thing. The reason I do this, it's a lot easier to embed a video file into our learning management system than an audio file. It also gives a bit of a visual for the content, even if it's going to be the same for the next 2 or 3 minutes. But then at the bottom, I also have a transcript of the audio podcast. So at the top there, I don't know if it's big enough for you to see, but what I say is click play below to listen to the audio podcast or scroll to read the transcript. So they have an option there. If they want to listen, they can. If they want to read, they can. If they want to read while they listen, they can do that too. Okay, so this is the first screenshot of interactive video. There wasn't a good way for me to show you how this works in real time using Canva, so I did screenshots. But this is how just the back end, how it looks, how it feels, how you design. But then what happens is as the students are playing the video, it's going to stop at various points, ask a question, why was the Travel Promotion Act important for the US? They can type in their answer and it will just do that at various points that I've set up in the video. I can use this for formative assessments, exams, quizzes, however I want to use this, but it kind of forces the student to watch the video too, which is important. Live streaming, I dug into this at the beginning of the pandemic from a personal perspective, and now I'm kind of toying with how to use it in my classrooms as well. So Facebook Live and YouTube Live are the most common. So if you have, Facebook groups for your students, you can use this there. I have used this on Facebook from a promotion perspective, for our students and not so much in the classroom. That's a good space for this as well. Just now kind of up leveling the skill for the classroom. So that's going to be another webinar later down the road. So Matt's was explaining my food writing. I actually host on Facebook and YouTube on Monday nights. My husband and I do a live stream cooking show for what that's worth. But it was a way for me to teach myself how to do the live streaming stuff. So we just kind of dove in. There's a lot that goes into this. So it's not for the weak of heart, I will say that, but we have a lot of fun. And it's certainly something that if you're that type of person and you're okay being on camera and you're okay, I burn the bread every other Monday. So okay, making mistakes on camera, this might be something that would be of interest to you, but it's definitely up there on that skill set. So, okay, so audience poll, and then we'll take questions because we are right on time, out of time, actually. Okay. So the QR code there will get you to a poll. I use Slido software, sli.do is the website address. You can, if you want, scan that with your phone, or I'll shift gears just a little bit. You can also join slido.com, type in that code and answer the same questions. I will play this for you. So what I'm interested in learning from you is what you're interested in learning more about. So once you go to Slido, you'll get that. Please choose 3 that you're most interested in up-leveling. And it will, as you answer, let me try to expand this. as you answer, it will start to show up here. And I'll give it just a moment. I will say that when presenting with Canva, there's not a good way to do polls. Canva has a built-in poll system, but you have to present live, and that doesn't work well with Zoom. So sometimes you have to figure out how to make different platforms work together. So I'm using Slido's website to do all of this morning. It does, however, embed into PowerPoint beautifully. And if you're using Google Slides, it embeds there as well. So looks like, well, good. Looks like everybody's everywhere. So video and audio are winning, course design, live streaming. Okay. See, this gives me a good idea of what maybe to present at next year's conference. Excellent. All right, that is all. I'm going to move this back out of the way now. And I ran us, right out of time there, Ray. So I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. And we open up the floor for any questions or discussions or topics or.
I think that's Adelaide. Not sure, trying to ask a question.
Do you want to put your question in the chat, Adelaide, and we come to it? I think it was her, wasn't it?
Mm.
Can I just ask a question, Niki?
Sure.
What is the most challenging up leveling that you've done?
Generally speaking, keeping up with the technology that our students are using and familiar with is the hardest thing to do. And my daughter just started high school, so I'm hoping I can, make that easier on myself as she's using technology in high school. Because that's what I find is that our students are used to using specific things in their high schools. And then when they come to college, they expect to see those same types of things, and we're not delivering there. So I think there's still a gap for us, and that might not be the case for every university, but it certainly is from our perspective. So just keeping up with that. And what I typically do is kind of pick out the skills that I think I can use across all teaching modalities. So it's something that benefits me and the students there. And learning how to do the video, learning, teaching myself all the live streaming stuff. That actually, as I'm talking, is something that I'm working with my virtual event planning course on. That didn't come out quite right. Because the live streaming and all of the setup and the technology that goes into that behind the scenes, those are things that our event students need moving out into a post-pandemic world of event planning. So that's actually coming in pretty handy right now for that class. But it was a big learning curve there for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I can, I don't think I have a version. I might have a PDF I can just drop into the chat here.
If you just want to send it to us, I'll put it on the website.
If you want to send it out, that's probably easier. I think I PDF'd it, but I'd have to look and find it now. So, but we'll get a copy out to everybody. Again, I'm happy to, talk over Zoom, or if you want to email, I'm happy to answer questions. Again, I know it was a ton of information, but my hope was that you picked out one or two things that you can, take back to your home or your office or wherever you're teaching from these days, and kind of work on. So you're very welcome. Thank you.
Anne, you have a question?
Yeah, I just have 2 or 3 little comments. Thank you very much, Niki. Really appreciate your wonderful in-depth knowledge. And I suppose I just want to take the opportunity, to ask you, what do you think about the students, in relation to gathering feedback from them, questionnaires, etc. In relation to how they have engaged? Do you have like evidence of that? That's the first question. Then, the use of podcasts, I saw that on your last screen there. I'm seeing it, everywhere in industry. And I'm wondering, what is the uptake that you know of in relation to podcasts kind of coming into the academic curriculum? So that's my second question. And then just third and final, while I'm here online as the Director of Member Services, I would just like to invite anybody that is online, or indeed that will be actually engaging in viewing this video, to engage with Eurocree, $25 sign up, after New Year. And if anybody has any questions in between, please get in contact with me as the director. And information here as well, I've just sent in the chat. So thank you, Niki.
Sure. We collect data at the end of each term on each course. So some of the questions there are related to how well the course is designed, what do you like most, what did you like least, all of those. And they're probably basic questions across the board for universities. So I use that and I pull from that when I can. I also, and especially if I'm doing something new in a class, I'll talk to the students kind of at the halfway point, and then at the end of the course to see if it's working, what needs to be changed, did you engage with it? And then I kind of shift if I need to in the middle of the semester. Sometimes I've shifted. We also can track everything in our learning management system. So there's a lot of data there as far as where students are in the course, where their eyes are in the course, where they're clicking in the course. Students, I'm not sure if students know we have all that or not. There are days where I wonder if they know that. But I can tell you every move a student makes inside one of my courses without even asking the student about it. So I use some of that data as well. So if that's available to you, that's a wealth of knowledge. With regard to podcasts, we have a professor on campus that actually built a podcast lab for students, and he teaches podcasting from a storytelling perspective out of the English department. So that has picked up a little bit of traction. I do the audio podcasts in classes because it's mobile friendly. And if a student is on a commute or sitting in the library or having coffee, taking a break, they can just pop in headphones and listen to a 5-minute, spiel about whatever marketing content I have. I've also used industry podcasts in my classrooms and linked to those for students to listen to. And there's so many of them out there, but, marketing podcasts or tourism, travel and tourism podcasts. I think there's space for that to be in the curriculum as well as kind of that other person teaching as opposed to me teaching.
That's lovely, thank you.
Sure. Let's see, are any of my students mature students? Do they engage the same way as younger students? So most of my classes that I teach, we are traditional or just slightly older than traditional. I have had adult learners, mature students. I've had students that were already retired from the industry coming back to just finish their degree. That's kind of few for us. We're still primarily traditional and kind of into the early to mid 20s with most of our students. That said, no, they don't. And the older the student, the less likely they are to engage in the same ways. So I think if it's possible for you to glean that information off of your course roster, or if you have access to, we have access to all of our student information. So if you're not familiar with all of your students, maybe ask that question, maybe dig into their academic records and see if you can figure out if there's an age, gap there, because they do learn differently. All of us are going to learn differently than my 18, 19-year-olds for sure.
Thank you.
No questions? No? All right, thank you. I
You covered
appreciate
everything.
time.
So it's okay. So Niki, thanks a lot, and thanks all of you for attending. It's been a great pleasure seeing you here, and hopefully we see you in either in Aalborg or we see you at the next webinar that will be advertised just after the conference probably. So thank you all for joining us, and thanks especially to Niki for a fantastic presentation.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.